On this week's Vaticano, we follow Pope Francis along his 5-day apostolic voyage to Poland, where he meets with more than 1 million young people for World Youth Day. There are solemn moments like his visit to the Nazi death camps at Auschwitz and Birkenau. But the majority of the trip showed the enormous joy of Christ of this Pope and young Catholics during the world's largest festival of faith. This and more, now on Vaticano. World Youth Day 2016 officially began on July the 26th with a solemn Mass celebrated by the Archbishop of Krakow, Cardinal Stanisław Dziwisz. About 200,000 pilgrims from 187 nations gathered in Krakow's Bologna Park to celebrate the opening ceremony.
Drodzy młodzi przyjaciele, droga młodzieży.
Dear friends, the moment we have been waiting 3 years for has arrived. We have been waiting since the day Pope Francis announced in Rio de Janeiro that the next World Youth Day would take place in Poland, in Krakow.
Odbędzie się w Polsce, w Krakowie. Dear friends, welcome to Krakow.
Cardinal Dziwisz greeted pilgrims and church authorities, emphasizing that all are welcome in the city of mercy, and there is a place for everyone in the merciful heart of God. The opening Mass was dedicated to the martyrdom of the French priest Father Jacques Hamel, who was assassinated that same day by a terrorist while celebrating Mass in his parish in Normandy, France. The Cardinal invited young people to pray for the gift of peace.
Mówicie wieloma językami.
You speak numerous languages, but starting today we are going to communicate with each other in the language of the Gospel, a language of love, brotherhood, solidarity and peace.
To język braterstwa, solidarności I pokoju.
Krakow is the city of Saints John Paul II and Faustina Kowalska, the great saints of divine mercy. At the beginning of the Mass, the relics of these patron saints of WYD 2016 were brought and placed to the right of the altar. While young people in Krakow celebrated the beginning of the festival, youth back in the Diocese of Brownsville, in the U.S. state of Texas, gathered to come together spiritually with World Youth Day. The event was held on the feast of St. Anne, the patron of the parish where the initiative took place. Pope Francis learned about the youth gathering in Brownsville and sent a special video message to them.
Quiero estar cerca de ustedes.
I want to be close to you.
Quiero decirles que miren siempre hacia adelante.
I want to tell you to always look forward.
Miren siempre a los horizontes.
Always look towards the horizon. Don't let life put walls in front of you. Always look at the horizon.
No, siempre mirar al horizonte.
Pope Francis urged young people not to forget about the tradition and heritage that they have received from their forebears, and to use it to live life to the full.
Dios te llama a ser fecundo. Dios te llama
God calls you to transmit this life to others. God calls you to create hope. God calls you to receive mercy and show mercy to others.
a recibir misericordia y a dar misericordia.
God calls you to be happy. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. Play life to the full. That is life.
Jugátela toda. La vida es así.
On the afternoon of July the 27th, Pope Francis started his journey to World Youth Day in Krakow. He departed from Rome's International Airport at 2 p.m. local time. The Holy Father was accompanied by a pontifical delegation and a collection of 70 journalists from 15 different countries. After a brief greeting, Pope Francis reminded the journalists that the world is at war, and he hoped that young people could bring some more hope to these times. The papal flight arrived at St. John Paul II International Airport in Balice, Krakow, around 4 p.m. local time. The trip would continue for 5 days, highlighted by his participation in World Youth Day events. Hundreds of Polish men and women dressed in traditional clothes to welcome Pope Francis. The Holy Father was also greeted there by the Cardinal of Krakow, Stanisław Dziwisz, and the Polish President, Andrzej Duda, and his wife. Then on to the welcome ceremony, held in the central courtyard of Wawel Castle, which used to be the residence of the Polish kings. The President of Poland called it a big honor to host World Youth Day in Krakow, in the city of St. John Paul II.
La prima volta che visito l'Europa centro-orientale.
This is my first visit to Central Eastern Europe, and I am happy to begin with Poland, the homeland of the unforgettable St. John Paul II, originator and promoter of the World Youth Days.
Ideatore e promotore delle giornate mondiali della gioventù.
In his speech, Pope Francis spoke about the importance of the national memory and identity in order to build a constructive dialogue. He said that Polish people have a specific capacity to nurture good memory while leaving the bad behind, referring to the difficult recent history of Poland. Pope Francis encouraged Poland to welcome those who are fleeing from wars and hunger and to be in solidarity with them.
La nazione polacca può contare, come è stato in tutto il suo.
As president, as throughout its long history, Poland can count on the cooperation of the Catholic Church, so that in the light of the foundational Christian principles that forged Poland's history and identity, the nation may, in changed historical conditions, move forward in fidelity to its finest traditions, and with trust and hope, even in times of difficulty.
Colma di fiducia e di speranza anche nei momenti difficili.
After a courtesy visit to the President in the Presidential Hall of Birds of Wawel Palace, Pope Francis met privately with the Polish bishops in the Cathedral of Krakow. He ended the day by answering questions from Italian youth by video link and greeting young people from the window of the Archbishop's house in Krakow. Stay with us. After the break, we'll be back with more on Vaticano. Thanks for watching. This is Vaticano. The next day of Pope Francis' stay in Poland started with a prayer before the icon of the Black Madonna at the monastery of Jasna-Góra. Jasna-Góra means luminous mountain in Polish. It's a national shrine dedicated to the Virgin Mary. The image of the Black Madonna of Czestochowa is the main treasure kept at the monastery. The icon is highly venerated by Poles for its beauty and for miracles attributed to Our Lady's intercession. Pope Francis presented the Madonna with a gift of golden roses and received from the monastery a copy of the icon and a chalice. The Mass was celebrated in the square just outside the shrine. According to official estimates, some 500,000 people gathered to participate in the event with Pope Francis. The Holy Mass was dedicated to the 1050th anniversary of the baptism of Poland. During the homily, the pontiff noted the particular significance of God entering into history in a very humble way.
Colpisce soprattutto.
It is particularly striking how the coming of God into history came about. He was born of a woman. There was no triumphal entrance or striking epiphany of the Almighty. He did not reveal himself as a brilliantly rising sun, but entered the world in the simplest of ways, as a child from his mother.
Come un bimbo dalla mamma.
Pope Francis says that many people are attracted by power, grandeur, and by appearances, but the exquisitely divine quality is to give oneself to others, eliminating distances, dwelling in littleness, and living the reality of one's everyday life. This quality has many sons and daughters of Poland, he said, especially those meek and powerful heralds of mercy who were St. John Paul II and St. Faustina.
Through these channels of His love, the Lord has granted priceless gifts to the whole Church and to all mankind. It is significant that this anniversary of the baptism of your people exactly coincides with the Jubilee of Mercy.
Pope Francis then went to the official World Youth Day welcoming ceremony in a very original way. He traveled by tram with some 15 young people with disabilities and their caretakers. Before Pope Francis boarded the tram with the inscription Tram del Papa, or Pope's Tram, the mayor of Krakow handed him the keys to the city. It's an old tradition of gratitude and welcoming. The Holy Father chose to sit by the window and along the way greeted pilgrims gathered along the route. Pope Francis also received a commemorative model of the papal tram and a tram ticket. Arriving at Bologna Park, the Holy Father made his way in the Popemobile through hundreds of thousands of young people. The youth welcomed the pontiff, shouting, waving flags, dancing, and singing hymns.
Pope Francis!
Dear Holy Father, mabuhay. Welcome. We thank you for calling us all here and for coming to the World Youth Day. Together, we want to follow the road of Christ's Beatitudes, guided in particular by the words, "Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy."
Pope Francis received a pilgrim kit from the hands of youth, and by doing it, he became officially a member of World Youth Day. Young people put on a show during the ceremony. Each continent presented the countries and its saints to highlight the international aspect of the Catholic Church, because Catholic means universal.
In questa sua terra natale vorrei
In this, the land of his birth, I especially want to thank St. John Paul II.
Paolo II. Ma forte! Forte! Chi ha sognato
who first came up with the idea of these meetings and gave them such momentum. From his place in heaven, he is with us, and he sees all of you. So many young people from such a variety of nations, cultures, and languages, but with one aim, that of rejoicing that Jesus is living in our midst.
in mezzo a noi.
Pope Francis said that in his years as a bishop he learned one thing: nothing is more beautiful than seeing the enthusiasm, dedication, zeal, and energy with which so many young people live their lives. When Jesus touches a young person's heart, he or she becomes capable of truly great things.
È stimolante sentirle condividere I loro sogni.
It is exciting to listen to you share your dreams, your questions, and your impatience with those who say that things cannot change. Those whom I call quietists. Nothing can change. No, young people have the strength to challenge them.
I giovani hanno quella forza di opporsi a questi. Ma alcuni non sono sicuri di questo.
But maybe some are not so sure about this. I ask you, and you respond, can things change? I cannot hear you.
The Holy Father says that the Church and the whole world look to young people and want to learn from them because mercy always has a youthful face. Only a merciful heart can go out and meet others, said Pope Francis. A merciful heart is able to be a place of refuge. A merciful heart can share its bread with the hungry and welcome refugees and migrants.
Dire misericordia.
To say the word mercy along with you is to speak of opportunity, future, commitment, trust, openness, hospitality, compassion, and dreams. But are you able to dream?
Di sognare. E quando il cuore è aperto,
When the heart is open and able to dream, there is room for mercy. There is room to caress those who suffer. There is room to draw close to those who have no peace of heart, or who do not have the bare necessities to live, or who do not have the most beautiful thing of all, the faith. Mercy. Let us together repeat this word, mercy. All of you.
un'altra volta. Un'altra volta.
And once more, so the whole world can hear you.
At 9:30 a.m. Polish time on the third day of the trip, Pope Francis arrived to pay a visit to the Auschwitz-Birkenau Memorial and Museum. In the 1940s, these were the sites of Nazi concentration and extermination camps. The Holy Father made a powerful gesture, visiting in complete silence. Pope Francis walked alone through the Auschwitz entrance gate with the slogan "Arbeit macht frei," "Work sets you free," written above. Then, by car, he arrived at Block 11, where the Franciscan priest, Father Maximilian Kolbe, was killed after offering his life in exchange for the life of a stranger. During World War II, more than 1.1 million people, mostly Jews, were systematically murdered here. After the silent prayer, Pope Francis met with camp survivors. The memorial conserves the train tracks and carriages that brought innocent people here to be extinguished in the gas chambers. At the end of the visit, a Jewish rabbi chanted the Psalm 130 in Hebrew, which says, "Out of the depth I call to you, Lord, hear my cry. May your ears be attentive to my cry for mercy." Pope Francis lit a votive candle at the foot of the wall of death. That evening, young people prepared a Way of the Cross in Jordan Park in Krakow. The theme of this Way of the Cross was the Path of Mercy. The ceremony started with a beautifully performed sand painting showing the suffering face of Jesus. The World Youth Day Cross was carried throughout, amidst prayer by a different group of young people for each station, and each station was represented by a particular work of mercy. The stations were also artistically performed with dance and theater. During his homily, Pope Francis posed a question to the young people. Where is God? If evil is present in our world, if there are men and women who are hungry and thirsty, homeless, exiles, and refugees, where is God when innocent persons die as a result of violence, terrorism, and war, when children are exploited and demeaned, and they too suffer from grave illness?
These are questions that, humanly speaking, have no answer. We can only look to Jesus and ask him. And Jesus' answer is this: God is in them. Jesus is in them. He suffers in them and deeply identifies with each of them. He is so closely united to them as to form with them, as it were, one body.
Pope Francis said that Jesus, with self-sacrificing love on the cross, carried with him the physical, moral, and spiritual wounds of all humanity.
By following Jesus along the way of the cross, we have once again realized the importance of imitating him through the 14 works of mercy. These help us to be open to God's mercy, to implore the grace to appreciate that without mercy we can do nothing. Without mercy, neither I nor you nor any of us can do a thing.
The Holy Father referred to the group of Syrian refugees present there. He greeted those fleeing war with special attention.
Humanity today needs men and women, and especially young people like yourselves, who do not wish to live their lives halfway. Young people ready to spend their lives freely in service to those of their brothers and sisters who are poorest and most vulnerable, in imitation of Christ, who gave himself completely for our salvation.
At the conclusion of the appeal to the young people, Pope Francis left them with a question.
Come volete tornare questa sera alle vostre case?
How do you want to go back this evening to your own homes, to the places where you are staying, to your tents? How do you want to go back this evening to be alone with your thoughts? The world is watching us. Each of you has to answer the challenge that this question sets before you.
Stay with us. After the break, we'll be back with more on Vaticano. Thanks for watching. This is Vaticano. Pope Francis began Saturday morning by visiting the Shrine of Divine Mercy in Krakow. He was warmly welcomed by the consecrated sisters of the convent. The Holy Father prayed before the image of merciful Jesus, which is above the tomb of St. Faustina Kowalska, the saint promoter of the Divine Mercy devotion. At the conclusion of the visit, Pope Francis received a copy of the image of merciful Jesus and prayed with all the participants to Our Lady. On the way to the shrine of St. John Paul II, Pope Francis then stopped at the terrace to greet young people gathered around the shrine.
The Lord today wants us to feel His mercy even more deeply. Never distance yourself from Jesus. Even if, because of our sins and our failings, we feel we are the worst, He prefers us that way. Thus His mercy spreads out. Let us all profit this day by receiving the mercy of Jesus.
Some 5 young people had received the sacrament of reconciliation from Pope Francis at the church dedicated to St. John Paul II. After hearing their confessions, the Holy Father celebrated Mass for priests, religious, consecrated men and women, and seminarians.
Yet in our lives as priests and consecrated persons, we can often be tempted to remain enclosed out of fear or convenience within ourselves and in our surroundings. But Jesus directs us to a one-way street, that of going forth from ourselves. It is a one-way trip and no return ticket, losing our lives for His sake and setting out on the path of self-gift. Nor does Jesus like journeys made halfway, doors half closed, lives lived on 2 tracks. He asks us to pack lightly for the journey, to set out renouncing our own security with Him alone as our strength.
The Holy Father posed a question to the consecrated clergy, asking, "What does Jesus ask of us?"
He desires hearts that are truly consecrated, hearts that draw life from His forgiveness in order to pour it out with compassion on our brothers and sisters. Jesus wants hearts that are open and tender towards the weak, never hearts that are hardened. He wants docile and transparent hearts that do not dissimulate before those whom the Church appoints as our guides. Disciples do not hesitate to ask questions. They have the courage to face their misgivings and bring them to the Lord, to their formators and superiors, without calculations or reticence. A faithful disciple engages in constant watchful discernment, knowing that the heart must be trained daily, beginning with the affections, to flee every form of duplicity in attitudes and in life.
At the end of the celebration, Pope Francis bowed his head and prayed at the relics of St. John Paul II. Since earlier that Saturday morning, pilgrims had started to arrive at the Campus Misericordiae, the Camp of Mercy, several miles from Krakow. Many young people carried along with them mats and sleeping bags in order to spend the whole night under the open sky after the evening prayer with Pope Francis. The Holy Father entered the field of mercy through a specially constructed holy door, together with young people from 5 different continents. Pope Francis then invited them to go with him to the main stage in the Popemobile. The ceremony started with several testimonies presented with theater and dance. For example, a very moving testimony was given by a Syrian girl named Rand from Aleppo. The girl shared the suffering of her country and how the Christian faith helps her to overcome the struggles that accompany war.
Others who died, including my friends, Noor, Antoine, William, and many other young men and women who could only be faulted for daring to have faith in humanity. They are all martyrs in this bloody war of no reason that has destroyed our souls, dreams, and hopes. More and more, I believe that God exists despite all of our pain. I believe that sometimes through our pain, He teaches us the true meaning of love. My faith in Christ is the reason for me, for my joy and hope.
Pope Francis invited young people to understand the real meaning of mercy and explained how Christians have to react in the face of war and violence.
Noi adesso non ci metteremo a gridare.
This is no time for denouncing anyone or fighting. We do not want to tear down, we do not want to give insult. We have no desire to conquer hatred with more hatred, violence with more violence, terror with more terror. We are here today because the Lord has called us together. Our response to a world at war has a name. Its name is fraternity. Its name is brotherhood. Its name is communion. Its name is family.
Si chiama famiglia.
After a period of reflection and prayer in front of the Blessed Sacrament, Pope Francis departed from the Campus Misericordiae by candlelight, leaving young people in the field of mercy in silent prayer. On Sunday, over 1.5 million young people from all over the world gathered at the same mercy field for the final Mass of World Youth Day. During his homily, Pope Francis encouraged young people and said that God counts on you for what you are and not for what you possess.
Ai suoi occhi
In his eyes, the clothes you wear or the kind of cell phone you use are of absolutely no concern. He doesn't care whether you are stylish or not. He cares about you, just as you are. In his eyes, you are precious, and your value is inestimable.
vali e il tuo valore è inestimabile.
Pope Francis warned them not to brood over troubles and past injuries. He said that it is a kind of virus infecting and blocking everything, but God, on the other hand, is hopelessly hopeful.
Cari giovani, non
Dear young friends, don't be ashamed to bring everything to the Lord in confession, especially your weaknesses, your struggles, and your sins. He will surprise you with his forgiveness and his peace. Don't be afraid to say yes to him with all your heart, to respond generously and to follow him. Don't let your soul grow numb, but aim for the goal of a beautiful love which also demands sacrifice. Say a firm no to the narcotic of success at any cost and the sedative of worrying only about yourself and your own comfort.
pensare solo a sé e ai propri comodi.
World Youth Day concluded with the announcement that the next international celebration of the event will be in Panama in 2019.